Okay, let's dive into the world of immersive education. It's exciting stuff, but it can feel like you're drinking from a fire hose with all the new tech and buzzwords. You specifically wanted to unpack Multiversica, so let's break down the research and see what's what.
It's true, there's a lot of noise out there. Having a solid framework is crucial, and that's where Multiversica comes in.
Now, the source we're looking at today starts by telling us what Multiversica isn't. Almost like they're heading off those, oh, another metaverse fad, eye rolls at the pass.
It's a smart tactic. By addressing misconceptions up front, they're ensuring we're all on the same page right from the start.
So if it's not just about strapping on VR goggles, what is Multiversica getting at?
In a nutshell, Multiversica is a roadmap for educators who want to use immersive tech effectively. It's not about the tech itself, but about how to teach better using it. They call it a pedagogical model, which sounds fancy, but it's really just a structured approach to teaching with immersive technology.
Like having a superpower, but needing that instruction manual to unlock its full potential, right?
Right.
Instead of just handing teachers the VR headsets and saying, good luck.
Precisely. And you know what happens when you're overwhelmed? 71% of teachers see the potential of VR, but a massive 55% feel overwhelmed by it, according to the research. Multiversica addresses this directly by providing structured guidance so teachers feel empowered, not overwhelmed.
Which is also relatable. New tech is exciting, but without a clear path, it's easy to see how it can become just another thing on a teacher's already full plate. The research also highlights some pretty compelling long-term benefits. Not just the initial wow factor of VR, but things like personalized learning and giving institutions a competitive edge. Stuff that makes a real difference in the long run.
Absolutely. And what's fascinating here is they back it up with research, not just flashy promises. That's where their 5EI diagnostic tool comes in. It helps institutions figure out where they stand in terms of immersive learning readiness.
Okay, so tell me more about this 5EI tool, because I have a feeling our listeners are going to want the inside scoop on this one.
It's like a personalized roadmap. Let's say you're strong on tech infrastructure but need help developing the teaching strategies around VR. 5EI identifies that and then points you to the specific guidance within Multiversica that you need most.
So it's not a one-size-fits-all solution, which I think is a huge sigh of relief for educators who are already juggling a million things.
Exactly. And to make it even more digestible, they've broken it down into what they call 5 nodes. Think of them like the pillars of the Multiversica approach.
Give us the quick rundown. What are these nodes all about?
Sure. You've got needs analysis, where you identify your goals and assess your resources, objective setting, because you need to know what you want to achieve, immersive design, which is where you get creative with building engaging experiences, implementation, where you actually put your plan into action, and finally, evaluation to see what worked and what could be improved.
It's like they've taken this potentially overwhelming concept and organized it into a neat and tidy to-do list. Makes you feel like you can actually tackle this whole immersive learning thing.
Precisely. It provides that structure and clarity that many educators crave.
Out of these 5 nodes, which one do you think would be the most crucial for, say, a history teacher looking to bring ancient civilizations to life?
I'd say the immersive design node would be key in that scenario. Imagine crafting a VR experience where students can walk through the streets of ancient Rome or interact with historical figures. It's about making history tangible and exciting.
And that's where it gets really interesting, right? It's not just about using VR, but about using it well to make learning more impactful and memorable.
Exactly.
Now, I read that Multiversica was presented at Congreso Futuro 2024, which is a pretty big deal in the world of innovation. It seems like it's already making waves.
It is, and the research emphasizes that it's adaptable to different contexts and budgets, which is great news for smaller institutions or even individual teachers interested in dipping their toes into the immersive learning pool.
That's encouraging to hear. It makes this whole thing feel much more accessible. Now, if our listeners are eager to learn more about Multiversica, where should they go?
The research points to a website, live.arrival.space/multiversica. There you'll find more information, resources, and ways to connect with the folks behind it.
Perfect. We'll make sure to include that link in the show notes for anyone who wants to dive deeper. And speaking of diving deeper, this whole idea of each institution, or even each educator, creating their own immersive pedagogy, it's fascinating.
It certainly raises some interesting questions about the future of education.
Right. Could this lead to a renaissance of educational approaches, where each school crafts its own unique blend of immersive learning, moving away from standardized methods? What does this mean for the students of tomorrow?
Now, those are questions worth pondering, and we encourage all of you listening to do just that. It's an exciting prospect, isn't it? Imagine a future where, instead of one size fits all, Each school or even each teacher can craft their own immersive pedagogy.
It's like the difference between a prepackaged tour and a custom adventure. And it makes you wonder, what could this mean for student engagement? And we've all been bored in school at some point,
Yeah,
right?
right.
What if this is the key to making learning truly captivating again?
That's the hope. The research suggests that personalized, immersive learning can lead to a significant increase in student motivation and knowledge retention. There's something about stepping into another world, experiencing things firsthand. It just makes a different kind of
It's
impact.
like the difference between reading about ancient Rome in a textbook and suddenly being there, walking those streets, seeing those gladiators in action.
Yeah. Exactly. And it's not just about flashy experiences. This is about creating opportunities for deeper understanding. Imagine a medical student practicing complex surgeries in a risk-free virtual environment, or an engineering student being able to visualize and manipulate 3D models of their designs. The possibilities are endless.
Okay, now I'm really getting caught up in the possibilities.
Yeah.
We've talked a lot about the what of Multiversica, but for those who might be wondering, okay, but does it actually work? What does the research say about its effectiveness?
That's the million-dollar question, right?
Yeah.
And the research is still emerging, but early indicators are very promising. Studies have shown that students in immersive learning environments tend to be more engaged, perform better on tests, and retain information longer. They're also more likely to develop critical 21st century skills like problem solving, collaboration, and creative thinking.
So it's not just about memorizing facts and figures anymore. It's about preparing students for a future where those skills are going to be in high demand.
Absolutely. And that's where Multiversica's focus on tailoring the learning experience to specific needs and goals is so crucial. It's about equipping students with the skills they'll need to thrive in a rapidly evolving world where immersive technology is only going to become more prevalent.
It's like we're at the very beginning of something huge, like being back in the early days of the internet when we were just starting to grasp its potential. Remember that feeling of excitement and possibility? That's what this reminds me of.
It's an exciting time to be involved in education, that's for sure. And the best part is, it's not just for the tech-savvy. Multiversica's framework is designed to be accessible and adaptable, empowering educators from all backgrounds to explore the power of immersive learning.
Which I think is so important. It's about democratizing access to these tools and creating a more equitable playing field for students from all walks of life.
Precisely. And this brings us back to your earlier point about a renaissance in education. It's not about replacing teachers, but about giving them new tools and approaches to enhance their craft.
Because, let's face it, teachers are rock stars. They're the ones on the front lines, shaping young minds and inspiring the next generation. Multiversica is just another tool in their arsenal.
Exactly. And it's about empowering them to be even more effective in their roles.
It all sounds incredibly promising. But I'm sure some listeners are wondering about the potential downsides. What about the cost of implementing something like Multiversica? And what about access for schools with limited resources?
Those are valid concerns, but here's the thing. The research actually emphasizes the adaptability of the Multiversica model. It's not about having the latest and greatest VR headsets or building a state-of-the-art virtual reality lab. It's about using the resources you do have in creative and effective ways.
So it's not just for elite schools with big budgets.
Not at all. There are ways to implement aspects of Multiversica on a smaller scale, using readily available technologies like smartphones and tablets. It's about shifting the mindset from, we can't afford that, to how can we adapt this to our context?
I love that. It's about resourcefulness and innovation.
Oh,
So you're saying that even if a school doesn't have a dedicated VR lab, they can still start incorporating some of these principles into their teaching.
absolutely. There are countless examples of educators using simple, low-cost tools to create immersive learning experiences. Think augmented reality apps that bring historical artifacts to life in the classroom, or virtual field trips using Google Earth. It's about being creative and thinking outside the traditional classroom box.
You've given our listeners a lot to think about. So before we wrap up, any final thoughts on where this is all headed? What does the future hold for Multiversica and immersive education as a whole?
It's exciting to think we might be on the verge of a major shift in education. Like, it really does feel similar to the early days of the internet, full of potential, but also, a lot of unknowns.
Exactly. And just like the internet, immersive education will likely evolve in ways we can't even imagine yet. But Multiversica provides a strong foundation, a framework for approaching this new frontier thoughtfully and effectively. It's like having that compass to guide you
Yeah.
as you explore uncharted territory. And speaking of exploring, for our listeners who are feeling inspired to dive deeper into Multiversica, we'll link to the website mentioned earlier, live.arrival.space/Multiversica in our show notes.
It's a fantastic resource, and it really highlights the collaborative spirit of this movement. There's a real sense of educators coming together to share ideas, resources, and best practices.
That's what makes this so exciting. It's not just about the technology itself, but about the community that's building up around it. A community dedicated to using this technology to create a more engaging, effective, and ultimately more equitable educational experience for all students.
Well said, and that's a powerful message to end on.
Absolutely. So to our listeners, we encourage you, keep asking those thought-provoking questions, keep exploring the possibilities, and most importantly, keep learning alongside us. The future of education is waiting to be shaped. And who knows, maybe you'll be the one to lead the way. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive, everyone.
Until next time.